So that's a really good actually thing, because if you don't write a letter for one day, your skills decrease and you get worse at it. So
What's up, everybody? Milan is here, and welcome to the Calligraphy Masters Podcast. This is a show where I talk with some of the most inspiring and influential artists in the world of calligraphy, lettering, and sign painting, with the goal of exploring their mindset and understand how they became successful. Today I'm very excited to be speaking with a super awesome Russian calligraphy and lettering artist, Viktor Pushkarev. We are speaking about his start with calligraphy, his struggles, developing his own style, talking about Russian Vyaz, doing it in a modern, unexpected way, his Vyaz book, workshops, and much more. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. Hey dude, hi Victor, how are you doing?
hi, nice you. How are you?
I'm doing
Today.
great, very great. Another podcast episode and another face that I meet for first time in not real, but like we never spoke before. We never had a chat conversation, so it's always cool to have meeting with new people and talk with them.
Cool.
So, can you tell me a bit about your background, where you're from, how old are you, like what was your life growing up, and things like this?
Yeah. So my name is Viktor Pushkarev. I'm 26 years old. I'm from Moscow, Russia. So I'm in calligraphy for about 5 to 6 years, and apart from calligraphy, I do many things. For example, illustration, motion graphic, and graphic design, ordinary. But mostly I'm focused on lettering and a bit calligraphy. So when I started, I was doing calligraphy, but then I slowly started moving into lettering mostly. But in my style, I have to combine lettering and calligraphy all the time. So yeah.
Okay, do you remember how did you get fired up for calligraphy? Is it something that you saw and inspired you, or it's more like something that's been in you throughout your life? And
Yeah, that's a very interesting story actually. So I was studying philology. I was studying English language, and at some point during my studies, I just thought like, what can I do with languages? Because they were not so interesting for me actually, and then. For some reason I broke up with my girlfriend, and I was angry with my life, and during that time I started writing letters. It was quite a wonderful experience, because I'm drawing all my life, but I'm a lefty, and I've tried to write letters, and it was hard, but it was thrilling actually, and I was angry with my whole life. It was just I was very young, and yeah, you know that first time you fell in love with someone, and I've decided to drop out from university and to move to a new life. So I was for the first several months I was just not going into the university. I was writing letters, but then you have a thing in Russia. Yeah, it's obligatory to go into the army. So if you drop out from university, you have to go to army. Yeah, that's a really hard thing, and I've decided. For example, there are some people that actually try to run from the army. They hide and then they don't go. But I've decided it's easier for me to go for 1 year to be in the army, and then I'm a free man. So I've dropped out, and then I got into the army.
for real?
And actually, yeah, I was in army for 1 year. But actually, I was using my lettering and calligraphy skills during my service. Since I had a very not so. I have a beautiful handwriting, and I was using it during my service, so I had some privileges during my service, and that's how calligraphy actually helped me not to be too much, not too much a soldier.
Okay, so what exactly did you have to do for the army with the writing? Is it like some documents or what?
Yeah, at the first time, those were documents, and then I have to write beautiful cursive for the army belts. Since when someone releases from the army, he wants to have a belt with beautifully written his name and surname on it. And yeah, I was a very good friend for sergeants that were releasing from the army, since they were requesting all the time to write their names. And yeah, that was the privileges actually. And also, after some time, the officers noticed me that that I'm not also a good calligrapher, but also I have some graphic skills and I can do graphic design. And that's when things went wild. So I had my usual typical day of being a soldier in the Russian army, and after that time, I had to be a graphic designer. So it was really funny, actually, a very non-standard way to serve in the army. And yeah, so
Yeah,
and
that's interesting.
yeah, and then 1 year was actually really quick, and I released, and then I've started a new life, and and then I've decided also to learn how to do the wood carving, and to do that thing I had to go to the studies, because at that time I didn't know how can I earn money with calligraphy, since I had some very tiny and not so good portfolio with letters, and I didn't have any clients, so I had to combine studying wood carving and calligraphy, and I was working really hard at that time. So I was not sleeping. I was sleeping at my work, and I was writing, illustrating, and then at some point I realized I had to choose one thing, because you can't do both. It's too exhausting.
Yeah.
And then after a year, I've moved totally into illustration and calligraphy, since those things I usually combine. And then I've started doing some projects, first clients, and then things went good. And then I decided to become a full-time lettering and calligraphy artist. So
Okay, we will go a bit deeper about
yeah.
that in a second. But can you tell me like what were the sources you were learning from in the beginning? Were you following some artists, or did you attend at a workshop? You were studying from a books, or how was it in the
When
beginning?
so the very beginning, it was only I was using only if contacted. That's an alternative website to Facebook, Russian Facebook actually.
Yeah, I
So
know
there were
it.
some so there were some groups with calligraphy, and then I've met Pokras at 2012, and then he had his first performance in a shop in Moscow, and that's when we first met in real life. And I was looking forward how he does his work, and I'm really inspired by his performance and art. And then was an army. I didn't have so much time. I didn't have any time to use computer. And after that, I've returned and went to St. Petersburg, since my style of calligraphy is connected to the Slavic culture and Russian culture. So I had to go to study at the masters. And in St. Petersburg, there is a very well-known calligrapher, Pyotr Chobitko, and he's mostly known for his Vyaz and Ustav, those traditional Slavic letters. And that's where I studied for a bit, and then I just used the internet, since you have now on internet there is so much information, and actually there's no so much information about Vyaz, so
That's
you
true.
can find, yeah.
I
So
like
that's what.
I myself like for like it was some years ago now. I guess it's
Hmm.
my like more info, but like 2 3
Yeah.
years ago I was like very into like Vyas, and I was searching everything on the internet and there was almost nothing, and I knew I had to search in Russian, which I understand. You know, I'm Bulgarian and it's
Hmm.
similar language, but still I couldn't find anything proper, and I
Hmm.
was so pissed. Like I know how it is with the Vyas. But what were the styles you started with? Did you like? Is it been from the beginning for you only Cyrillic calligraphy, or you started
No.
with Latin, or how was it?
No, I've started actually with that's a usual thing when you get into the calligraphy, you just adore Gothic, like Gothic calligraphy, and I'm starting doing it. And then I did some street art, and I was experimenting with Gothic calligraphy, and also I did some basic styles, like very historical styles. But then at some point I've realized that those Cyrillic styles of calligraphy are just something very interesting for me actually. And then just I went into Cyrillic mostly, and so and at this point I realized that I have missed some things in Latin calligraphy. But you can't be a master of all trades, because you have to be good at one style, and those other styles you have to know at some basic level, which I actually do. But I'm not good at them, but I know them. And yeah, and also about the studies. Then during it was 2016, and then I've decided I don't have enough knowledge, and I've decided to do studies about typeface design. And then I again moved into St. Petersburg, and I was staying there for a half of a year. I didn't finish those studies, since I realized at some point that typeface design, it's a very interesting matter, but I'm not thrilled at it. It's more like doing those vector things and the kerning and all of that, mostly engineering things, and that's I didn't finish, but I've gained knowledge actually from that. Really good basic knowledge, academical. So, and that's when I returned back to Moscow and started again working on my book and my style, and yeah, and now I'm here.
And at what point you start like mixing or also learning lettering? What was the reason for that? Like
the reason is very simple. Since I've said earlier that I'm a lefty, but at some point I've started writing with my right hand, and usually when I do calligraphy, I write with my right hand. And you know that thing that it's obvious, you have to practice your hand, because if you don't practice it, it will get worse during that time. So you have to do every day, you have to write. And that's a bit of a problem for me, because for some reason I simply can't feel the letters with my left hand. I can write actually with my left, but I can write with my right hand. That's a really strange thing. Sometimes I try to explain to my students that right hand simply feels like how you simply know how to move your hand and how to use the instrument. But left hand is mostly for lettering. So yeah,
I'm super confused. Like you're
Yeah.
you're a lefty, and you usually write with your left hand, but
I do, yeah. But calligraphy I do with my right hand.
what?
Yeah, that's a strange thing actually.
It's strange, but it's like super like cool at the same time. I'm like, okay, like I know lefties, and I know also people who start learning to write with the other hand as well. But now, like you're saying, you're being a lefty in general, and then somehow you can do better. That's awesome and weird at some point.
Yeah, that's weird. And also, I have some friends from very good calligraphers from St. Petersburg that actually they are lefties, but when they started doing calligraphy, they moved to their right hand, and now they use their right hand as a daily basis. So, but I went into a very strange way to develop my calligraphy. So, yeah, but that's how things work.
I'm super confused, dude. Like because because at one point in calligraphy, when I understood that like some masters, when they become like at very huge level, if they, for example, write with the right hand, they learn to do it as well with the left, or the other way, depends on the person. So at one point I was like, okay, like maybe I should start learning with the left. But man, my left is so bad. Like I don't know, I don't know how much time I have to spend in order to do even a beautiful letter, not a calligraphy one, but just a letter in handwriting. My left hand is so bad. I'm like, And you now saying like this that you had to learn it like this, and then you have also friends doing it. I'm like,
Hmm.
is this some secret trait in Russia that no one else knows?
No, there's some really hardworking colleagues and in Russia that they love calligraphy so much that they have to just change their hand. Yeah, and what? Yeah,
That's super awesome. Like, is
yeah.
calligraphy where like very, how to say it, spread around, and like are there many people doing it in Russia?
Yeah, actually, for the last 4 years, the calligraphy has developed really good in Russia, and well, in Moscow, you have a very powerful school of Yevgeny Dobrovinsky. He's a really powerful teacher, and he has um, students like Natasha Toropitsina and all very huge student base. And also in St. Petersburg, you have students from Pyotr Chobitko, at which I've studied at that school. And yeah, and also you have different schools in other parts of Russia, in Samara. Also, you have in Novosibirsk. And yeah, it actually got really popular these days. But also, when calligraphy got very popular, you have some bad schools that try to sell their courses, and yeah, that's normal actually. And I really hope that at some point they will develop into getting the content not into the quantity but into the quality. So there's a high chance that that will happen. But yeah, those traditional schools, which are actually very old in Moscow, the Evgeny Dobrovinsky is actually teaching students for approximately 15 to 20 years, which is a very old school. And Pyotr Chobitko is also approximately at 20 years. And he's been teaching his students for this whole life. But the start of his school actually was about approximately 15 years ago. And yeah, since there are some really master degree artists, but also you have some young calligraphers that are really good actually, and they're developing their skills really quickly. And sometimes you just open your Instagram and you see new faces and they're really good, and they just popped out from nowhere, and and then you ask yourself, well, how did they get so good in such a short time? So yeah, that's how things work in Russia.
At what point did you start getting clients, and what jobs did you
Mhm.
have to do for them?
So firstly, because my style is very unique and it's mostly Russian oriented, I've started firstly getting some clients from the church, yeah, and then I got some clients from another parts, like from the pagans, and because it's also connected to them. But then since it got at some point that style got very popular, and then when I got some graphic design lettering, and also I got some art objects art projects I've did in Moscow, and also I've been contested in there is a festival in Russia called Krug Sveta. It's when you got your letters projected on a big theater and all buildings, and also did that. And yeah, and so I don't know actually how it works, but I never searched for a client. They actually usually come to me. So and then, but at some point, I've stopped doing client requests because for some reason I thought like I don't know anything. Like when you got your skills, when you get your skills good, and then at some point you just realize that you're not good enough. And then when I stopped, actually, I had students when I was very very young. Actually, in a matter of calligraphy, I had some students, and I was doing the client's work. I was teaching students, and then at some point I realized like who I am to teach someone. Like my skills are not that good because I've seen how masters of calligraphy teach their students, and like I was like, well, I'm really bad at it and I should stop it. And then I have moved to St. Petersburg to gain knowledge, and at that point I just gained that academic knowledge, and I've improved my skills, and I've returned back to the client work. But no, I didn't return back to giving lessons to students. From time to time, I have some small courses for 2 days, but that happens usually one time per year. And I'm also well known in Russia that I give knowledge for free, because last year I've released my Vyaz book, which actually is being now translated into English, which is actually free totally. I uploaded it to the Vkontakte because it's the biggest platform you can get in Russia, and it got really wild because the quantity of it got so many views, got so many reposts and likes, and the calligraphy community in Russia was really thrilled about it. And I've spent 1 year actually working really hard on that material, and I've uploaded for free because I wanted to do it.
Well, this is a very good thing that you did, and at the same time, it's very smart.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and I need the link for this book. I need to
Yeah.
I need to get it. Like I mean, in Russian it's still good for me. Like I know maybe
Yeah.
some people will need the English version, but after the podcast, remember to send me the link, please.
Yeah, of course, I'll send you. But now I'm translating right into the Russian, because it's not actually a typical book you can find, because it has so many motion graphic, and it's unique in that term that all letters and are animated, and I've spent so much time working on it, and I'm quite sure that it will find its viewers outside from Russia. But now I'm just preparing an English version of it, and I'll upload it. It will be a whole website actually about Vyaz's book. So yeah, it requires time, and but during that you have to gain money, and you have to do your own projects, because you can't. I can't concentrate all the time on one project, because it might lead to a bad strategic.
Sorry that I just
Yeah.
did I like stop it, but I was just thinking, like you said, you stopped like teaching people because you don't feel like, which is great, and I understand it. But at the same time, now when you tell me the story about the book and you see it so well preserved from people, man, you should definitely teach like Vyaz or something like this. And whenever you are like good at something, but you feel like okay, I need to learn more, you can always do this like this workshops or whatever you teach the people. Let's say Vyaz basic level or for beginners.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when you feel like better, you can start making another one, like Vyaz for how it's said, like medium or intermediate, whatever. I'm like my English sometimes.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, actually, how I've started writing the book. Actually, the very beginnings of the book were actually the material I created for my students, that material that I gave at my workshops. And then at some point I realized I can develop that knowledge into something bigger. And I did not for the sake of earning money or gaining my audience. I did it for the sake of improving my own skills. So when you write a book, actually you develop your own skills, and you get a good view of what things you know, what things you don't know, and also when you upload materials to online. You can get reviews of your materials. Is it good or is it bad? And yeah, actually, I can do workshops, and I'm planning to do that. But I'm now preparing it in a more interesting manner, because at this year I've decided to move mostly to start gaining audience outside from Russia, because approximately a month ago, I was actually staying on Bali for 2 months, and that's where I did my first lesson on Vyaz to non-Russian speakers, and that
Okay.
was really interesting thing because you can from the viewers, my students, they didn't know that if Cyrillic even exists, and you have to explain what Cyrillic is, and then and Vyaz is really complicated and it's very unique, and then you have to explain how ligatures work, and they were like children actually. They were really they were surprised that such thing exists, and then I realized I should do Vyaz outside from Russia, and that's why I'm now translating the book, and that's like step by step I'm moving towards into workshops, and but still there's so much work to be done.
So are you planning to do any workshops in Europe?
Yeah, I'm planning by the end of the year to go to US, and since when you have to plan to go to the US, you have to go there with a very good budget, and also going to Europe. Yeah, also I'm planning to do that, but firstly I have to plan my summer because summer is usually the time when you get good client requests and you can do very interesting art projects, and that's why I'm now looking towards like what I'll be do what I'll do this summer, and if things get lucky, I might get into the Europe, and that's when I can teach someone to do Vyaz.
What do you mean by very interesting clients?
Yeah, but usually, because summer is a time when you can create art objects, and I haven't done that for the last 2 3 years because I was working really hard on improving my skills. Like you have to do because you can do art projects, client work that will improve your skills. But if you get focused on improving your skills on the paper, you'll get much better, and that's when and those things are quite separate for me. And this year I'm looking forward for doing mostly art objects because probably you remember last year I was doing lettering Vyaz inside of the forest,
Yeah,
which
on
was
wood and stuff like this.
yeah, and those things were really unique. And those projects I did for myself because when you do your own project, it gets views, and then you get clients. Like those are simple things how the industry works. And now I'm working on a very interesting secret project that will be it will be really good. It will be in some from some point of view it's an improved version of that forest project,
Is
and
this something Russian? Another thing Russian? Like Pokers has all the time these secret projects. Now you tell me you have a secret project. Is there a secret behind having a secret project?
yeah, but because if you start telling about your project during the process of the project, you might fail. So that's how the things work. You shouldn't tell anything until it's done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, I see what you mean, but at the same time, who cares, man? Like failure is just the path to success, you know.
Yeah, but I'm my own worst critic. So if I fail, I just get really depressed. I acknowledge that I'll get better in the next time, in the next try, but yeah, I'm really hard when it gets to being self-criticized. Yeah.
Okay,
So
how do you handle failure? Because like I think failure is a great part of the journey and of success. Like I myself like have failed. I don't know, maybe not hundreds, thousands times
yeah.
with things around Calligraphy Masters since the very beginning. And failure is it's a strange thing, you know. Like so, I'm wondering how do you handle failure?
Well, the last time I've failed, it was actually I have many failures, but usually I just do statistics, and I try to look upon for example, I've been working on a project for the last 3 months, really hard, and then you uploaded it and you see how it works. Does it work? How the audience sees it, and when you put a lot of effort into a project and it doesn't go as good as you've planned, you get depressed. And that's I got really depressed in the December of the last year, because I was working the whole year on my book, and it got really good, but I wasn't satisfied how it got good, and then I was like really angry, and then I decided, yeah, I should stop doing calligraphy. I should rest, and that's when I went to Bali, and I was staying there for 2 months, and then that's where I actually also do filming and all of that stuff, because you can be creative in multiple fields at the same time, because visual industry is a very interesting place to work in, and during my staying on Bali, I just realized that I can do filming, but calligraphy is my thing. And then I just started being not depressed, and that's when I got also motivated to work again. And yeah, you have your ups and downs, and that's very normal. But when you put a lot of effort and then you don't get the result you've wanted, you just fall down. But that's the most interesting thing, when you have to get up again and to work again. And yeah, it happens all the time. But in the December, I just went really angry. I was like, I'm working too much and I don't get the results. Why is happening that? And you have to analyze what the mistakes you did, what you did wrong. And usually you don't do that if you're really successful. But if you fail, you analyze, and then you realize your mistakes and you don't do them again. You'll do mistakes, another mistakes, yeah, but you have to stand again and go forward.
Keep going, keep writing.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Okay, that's awesome. And yeah, you mentioned some of the things that pop up in my mind. Like I saw in Bali you were doing videos. So is this something like that you feel it's like another passion of yours? Because I remember when I started with YouTube, like I felt this love with filming and video editing, like the way when I discovered calligraphy, and I thought when I discovered calligraphy, there's not gonna be anything else that I'm gonna feel the same way about. And the funny thing is, when I felt the same way about this with filming and video, the good thing is I didn't stop calligraphy, and I found a way to combine them, So
Yeah, but being an artist today is not simply about writing letters or creating lettering. You have to create a good presentation of your work. And at some point, I just invested money into a good camera, good Steadicam, gimbal, drone, and those are things that can from those things you can actually gain money, but not filming calligraphy. And at some point, in December actually, when I decided to pause my calligraphy activity, I've decided to do filming, and I'm inspired by beautiful women, and I filmed some models on Bali, and yeah, that's a good thing because you can do that.
did you only film them? Did you only film them?
Yeah, I only filmed them, and you just take a pause, relax, enjoy the views, the island, and actually, I planned to stay there for a month more, but I didn't wrote about on Instagram in English. But actually, I got an injury. I fell on the floor and I got 12 stitches on my head. Like
What?
it was, yeah, I was. It was really strange actually, because I was lucky because I had paid insurance. and everything went good. I didn't had trauma or anything, and even after that, I've decided to stay on Bali. But I had to do a visa run, and I decided to go to the Singapore because always wanted to visit that city, and at the registration desk, they told me we can give you transit visa because you are going from Bali to Singapore and from Singapore to Bali. And I was like really unhappy about it. And then I've decided like, yeah, I got head injury. They didn't allow me to go to Singapore. Maybe I should return back to Russia. And yeah, I bought tickets and I flew back to Russia, and here I am. But when I returned to Russia, the first minutes I've stepped on the Russian land, I've felt like, yeah, man, it's time to do calligraphy and lettering again. So and that's when I returned home and started working really, really hard. So you've noticed latest 2-3 posts, I've been developing some really strange style of Vyaz.
Yeah. I want to speak about this because, like, I saw this and, like, I mean, you've done one post some time ago in the same style, but now I can see you starting focusing on this, and this is super cool. It's super unique and something I haven't seen. So, talk a bit about this. How did you come up with it? And
I come up with it while I was writing a book. Yeah, you see, when you write a book for yourself, actually you gain some knowledge and you realize some interesting things about Vyaz. So when you write typical Vyaz, you have ordinary contrast because you do a flat brush and you just move like it's wide when you go downstroke. But what will happen if you do the reverse contrast? If you turn your flat brush 90 degrees and you do it's called reverse contrast. Yeah. And that's when things got really interesting because Vyaz is very ornamental actually, and it's beautiful. It's very ornamental. But when I reversed the contrast, it also got ornamental, but in a different way. And that's when things went crazy because it's very unique.
It is super unique.
Yeah. And it's a very good field to research and to create interesting compositions. So now I'm working I have a very old paper, actually from the 18th century,
What?
and now I have friends from library, a national library in Russia, and they gave me a very, very old paper, and now I'm doing those letters on a very old paper, because this is a Russian imperial stamped paper, and
What?
and I'm combining some really, really old paper with modern reverse contrast Vyaz, which is a very unique thing, and I'm just playing it because I'm really accustomed. Like when you're a calligrapher, lettering artist, and a graphic designer, I'm mostly accustomed to that letters should have some purpose, because when you're creating design, your design has to solve some problems for the client. And this type of art, it doesn't solve anything. It's just like art for itself. And I'm just playing around, and I'm being really happy because that's a thing I haven't done in a while. Like the latest thing from art project I've done is I was doing Vyaz on the stones. Probably you remember.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's when after that project, I focused on releasing my book and also some small client work. And then I stopped, went to Bali. And when I returned back to here, I was like, yeah, I should do art projects again. I'm really happy about it. And I'm working 24 hours a day. I don't sleep. And I was drawing all the time. Yeah.
That's super awesome, man. Maybe one day you'll be doing this new style on wood and stones as well?
Yeah, actually on Bali, I was doing a small research because Bali is a very cheap island actually, and I was talking with stone carving master, like if he can create letters in a stone for me. Like I can create the design and he can carve them. And then I had a really crazy idea, like to take a really big letter, Cyrillic, and to go onto the volcano and put a letter on the volcano. It was really an insane idea. But yeah, I was planning to do that in a month. I planned to stay a month more on Bali, but that's when things went really strange and I couldn't stay on Bali because of the head injury and I can't do and I couldn't do a visa run. So I'll do that again because I'm planning to return to Bali maybe this year again because it's a really good place to be. If you haven't been there, I recommend you because it's a very unique island.
Yeah, I haven't, and now that you talking, I was just being in my mind. Okay, I have to see this. I have to go there.
Yeah.
But man, 12 stitches. That's not a joke, man. I have here something on my head, and it was like 3 or 4 stitches, and 12 is a lot, dude. Like,
Well,
isn't
I
this
had
dangerous?
yeah, that's dangerous. But you know that I have many head injuries because I have here injury, here injury. I was as a child I was very active, and you probably don't know, but I lived in Serbia for 10 years.
Okay.
So in some from some point of view, I'm your neighbor because I lived there. And that's where I studied my primary school, and that's where I got so many injuries because I was like very active.
I see.
Yeah, so 12 stitches is it's a bad thing, but it's not the worst thing it can happen.
Obviously not. You're good enough.
Yeah.
How long does it take approximately to do one of those pieces that you showed me on the paper? Like?
Well, firstly, you have to do a sketch, and usually I do sketching on my Wacom on our iPad. But then when you go straight onto the paper, it can take approximately 8 to 10 hours because it's very detailed. And you have to it has some very tiny elements and it takes time. But when I develop a sketch, it takes approximately 4 hours, 5 hours, yeah. It's worth actually because, everyone says calligraphy is a meditation, but lettering is also from some point of view, is also meditation because you're just creating an ornamental pattern, and it's a fun to play with. So, but it takes time.
What are the tools that you use in creating this?
In this, usually I use my Lamy Safari. This thing, and also that's for the outline, and then I use my brush to fill the letters. But when it gets to calligraphy, it's always white brush, always, because you can also create Vyaz with typical brush pen. But it's just a different sort of Vyaz. It's more smooth and it's more like silky. If you get the point of the word, it's really it's not so sharp edged. So you can.
Can you or can't you do like Vyaz with broad edge nip, or is not?
Yes, you can.
I was afraid to ask because I was not sure if I've seen other people do it, and I did it like this, and I was like, man. Maybe I did it just this way and it's not correct.
Yeah, you can do that. Actually, you should scroll down because my main colleague in Russia is Andrei Martinov.
I know him.
And he actually he does Vyaz with his white brush. So, but Vyaz is a very interesting style because it's considered to be a part calligraphy, a part lettering, because you have to combine those two all the time. You can do the Vyaz only with lettering, but even now, no one from historical research no one is so sure about how Vyaz is actually written, because you can draw the same things. You can draw it, you can write it, and you can combine those. And but when you strive for the perfect result, for the most ornamental, I consider lettering is better for the Vyaz. But if you do calligraphy type of Vyaz, it's good, but you should do that on big objects, because it's not so good to do a lettering like for these letters so big. Yeah.
And which is your favorite way of doing it? Like, which one do you enjoy the most?
Yeah, mostly I love lettering, because since I really love combining illustration and lettering. So yeah, I mostly now for the last half of year I mostly work with my left hand. But when it comes to some client work, you have to firstly to write, because nothing can replace standard calligraphy. Yeah, because calligraphy is calligraphy. Lettering can be based on calligraphy, but it it can't replace. Yeah.
Earlier you told me there's like a lot of new names popping up, young people which are good.
Yeah.
Can you mention
Yeah.
some names that are young and they're worth following and checking?
Yeah, there are two guys from Moscow, Stepan Barnev. I will send you the links. Stepan Barnev and Ilya, I guess his surname is Novozhilov. They are now practicing Roman capitals, and they're getting really, really good, because Roman capitals is the hardest thing you can do, actually, and they're getting really good at it. And also, there are some really, really young, but there is no need to tell the names, because if you name them now, they'll relax.
Yeah.
But
I
I
know
see
what you
that but I see that those two guys are working really hard, and it's good to tell about them, because yeah, they deserve it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And my questions popped up like it's okay. I'll just what was it? Oh yeah, like you said they're doing Roman. I wanted to ask: is there an Cyrillic alternative to all alphabets? Like, is there a Cyrillic Gothic or Cyrillic Italic and Cyrillic Romans?
Yeah, there are alternatives, but it's considered a bad taste to write Gothic Cyrillic, because uh, mm, adaptations of Latin Gothic to Cyrillic are not so good. They have some flaws, and they're not so. Um, if you consider about very historical alternatives, they're not so good. But if you create some your own style from that thing, it can be good. For example, as far as I know, Pokras uses some Cyrillic alternative, but Pokras has its own style. So yeah, he just developed it. But for Italic, you have a good alternative. And for other historical styles, you have them, but they're not so good. Yeah, I can send you, if you're interested, I can send you the materials also, which we have on the Vkontakte, and you can see like
Sure, I would love to.
they look good, but they're not the Latin thing. Like Latin is very perfectly balanced, but in Cyrillic variations, it doesn't look good. And as a calligrapher, you can see that it has some flaws. For normal people, like they see Cyrillic Gothic and they say, "Wow, it's good," but they just don't understand that it has some bad things inside of it.
Well, I understand what you mean, but like having a flaws means like there is a way to improve it, and like you can still learn
Yeah,
some stuff from it. And
yeah,
I myself actually I've seen a very good variation of Gothic and Fracture in Cyrillic. I also myself have done some because I mean I don't look anything. Cyrillic is my native language, like alphabet, and I do some Gothics from my head, and I enjoy a lot of them, but my point is, I've seen also some very good Russian alternatives to Gothic. So
Probably, I can't recall if Andrei Martinov he has his Gothic workbook, PDF presentation of his letters, and as far as I know, he sells it. And I can't recall if there's any Cyrillic alternatives, but the letters of the Gothic letters of Andrei are really good. They are just perfect from my point of view. I should look because probably he has some alternatives, and in his Instagram he has Cyrillic Gothic, but those typical alternatives that you can find, they're not so good. But I'm not telling that you shouldn't write because
yeah, I'm just want to see what's your point of view on it. That's it. Okay, you mentioned
yeah.
some yeah. Oh, sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, if there's nothing, you can create something. Like, if there is a bad Gothic Cyrillic, you can jump into it and to create something new and good. And that's a really good position to be in because Cyrillic nowadays is a really broad field to experiment and to create something new and unique. So we're actually very lucky to use Cyrillic because we have a really we have we have a place, we have a playground in which we can experiment, play, and create something new.
That's true, and it's awesome that you see it this way. Like,
Yeah.
that's very cool. Like, yeah. Okay, you mentioned some young names. Can you mention like some old or I don't know, like real masters in Russia? Like, yeah, I mean, you already mentioned like two people who teach, but can you mention some names that are?
Yeah, for example, I really love the work of Sabina Alyarova. She's from Saint Petersburg, and she has a very good experimentation with. I can't even name the style she does, but she's really good. She's also a student of Pyotr Chebitko, but she has far more experience than me in calligraphy. Also, there is Natasha Toropitsina because she's probably the best calligraphy in Russia, parallelly to Andrei Martinov, because she also does Arabic calligraphy, which is insane. She studied Arabic calligraphy. I don't know where, but outside from Russia, and she's really good. She's a master, and also there are some minor names. For example, just a moment, because when I have Instagram, when I open my Instagram, I have several names that I look constantly because you can when you get into the Instagram feed and sometimes you get too much information, but I have those names which I look constantly. Also, the Vika and Vita Lopukhiny, of course, like they're from Ukraine, but that can be from some point of view considered as around Russia. So I really love them. They're like very creative, and their letters have some life inside of them. And probably that's it. 3 names that will be good, because if you there are some other calligraphers, but I don't look too much at them. Like they have good, bad works, but those 3 names, like they are my mostly viewed masters.
Have you thought about like the book? I mean, you said you did it for free, but have you thought about creating a how is that like live copy of it so people can buy it and have it in their hands?
Yeah, actually, I got some requests from book manufacturers, and but at this point, I don't see a reason to create an offline book because it will be really strange if I put the same material that's already free inside an offline book, which is not. It's a weird way, but I have plans about it. Uh, Probably in 2 or 3 years it may come
No.
because
Yeah, you know, I ask because, of
mhm,
course, you did it for free, and you
mhm,
said, like, what's the point? Well,
mhm.
first of all, if you do an offline copy, you always can add a few more pages and check some things
Yeah.
to change them. But even if you don't do this, like,
Mhm,
if I have the PDF, I would love to
mhm.
buy the book because I
Yeah.
have some
Mhm.
ebooks, but still I buy the original book because it's not the
Yeah.
same feeling as having a real book in your hands.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But at this point, like, for example, you have some old masters, like Dmitry Petrovsky. He published 3 books about calligraphy. The last book about calligraphy is a really big one, and he spent writing those books probably 20 years. And I consider it will be not so respective to, for example, like I was writing my book for more than a year and like I can publish it and I can sell it. I consider like I can create a product which will be actually good, but have to put so much effort into it to be proud that I created a unique product. So that's why I always respect when someone works really hard, and that's why I'm so hard on myself because when I want to create a Vyaz book, it has to be really good. And so I've started from a free version of it, but during that I'm improving my own skills and parallelly I'm writing an offline book. So those things are just parallelly. But you know, writing a book is a really hard thing because it takes so much time, so much energy, and also you have to eat, you have to do customer work, you have to create your own projects, and it's actually a very normal thing. Like those names, those calligraphers which I named earlier, they can write a really good books, but they don't have time to do it, which is a shame actually, because they have so much knowledge and they should share it with the audience, and but they don't have time, and I can't and I can't and I don't know actually the word in English, but I can't judge them because yeah, and I'm putting all my effort to create and to give new information to the viewers, but it takes time. So the book, I will release it, but I just need time to do it because yeah, I'm also collecting books, and I know that there is a huge difference between an ebook and a standalone offline book, because you can download like hundreds of books and they're not worth of it. Like they are just they are like a spirit. You can touch them, but when a offline book, it has weight and you can smell it and you can read it, and yeah.
No, but I think it's like you have a very great way of thinking, like seeing the things. Like
Mhm.
it's, I really love your arguments about it. So it's pretty cool that you see things this way. Because I don't know, like I don't say there are not people, but I don't think there is so many people nowadays that
Mhm.
see the things this way, and I think it's quite important to have more people like this.
Mhm.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but
Do you have in Russia some like how to say, like Russian tools or pens and inks that are good and popular, but you know them only you in Russia? Because, for example, there's like pilots, they are
mm,
worldwide. I don't know, popular, but
no, usually we buy calligraphy instruments that are created outside from Russia.
Okay.
We don't have anything in Russia that's considered to be Russian and to write calligraphy. And that's a normal thing because even though calligraphy is now really popular in Russia, but it doesn't have any legacy like it has outside in the Western world, which calligraphy now exists for a really long time. But during the Soviet Union, we had some problems, and we don't have the legacy. But probably, maybe, well, I can't name color pens like the Russians. You have the masters that create color pens, yeah, and you can consider that a Russian instrument because the creator is Russian. But yeah, but then there is none Russian instruments. We buy everything that comes from outside.
Not even Russian nips or something like this?
We have Soviet nibs, and they're considered to be a practice tool because they're really hard and they are not so flexible.
Okay.
Because actually in Soviet Union, calligraphy was practiced in school, but in a terms of just improving your handwriting, not just for the sake of beautiful calligraphy, not for the sake of the art. And there are many those sharp nibs, but they are not so good for the classic calligraphy. But you can practice with them, and also you can draw with them because since they are really not so flexible, you can create good lines, and you can draw with them, and that's it. Also, you have wide nibs, but they're not so good as the Western nibs. So yeah.
Is calligraphy and lettering your how was fucking English? Like sometimes the words pop out for like is your main income from calligraphy and lettering, or you have to work something or do some other jobs in order to live?
Usually, how I work inside how my business actually works. I have a period when I take client work, a period when I earn money, and then I have a period when I create my own projects because usually you improve during your own creative projects. And so I have a phase when I do the clients and a phase when I do my own ideas. And yeah, usually clients come for my letters, and sometimes they request some letters combined with illustrations. But I mostly love doing standalone calligraphy pieces, which actually are being sold to the collectors and those who appreciate my art. And that's the best income I can get because I create art and I get money from it. But when I try nowadays to run away from the design because it's not the thing now I'm very thrilled of, because design is good, it solves some problems, but at this point I want to create an art. I want to express my feelings, and I want to create a beautiful visual image. So that's actually the reason I'm now looking forward into the Western market, because Russian style is very unique, and I really think that it will get good outside from Russia. But that's a field I have to now test, and you have to do the testing phase, because you can create many paintings, but if they're not sold, what's the reason? Yeah, you get satisfied from the art, but you don't get money, so that's not good.
Yeah. Have you done or have you considered doing some prints of your work, like selling some prints?
Yeah, the most strange thing about my work is that my audience asks me all the time, do I have some prints for sale? Do I do some clothing? And I just like, probably I'll do, but
Dude,
then
come on, man! Like people are doing prints and shirts and they're trying to sell them, and your audience is asking you about it, and you're still not doing it.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I'm trying to create a focus field because when you create an art, very unique art, as it because it's very unique, the price is very high. When you create your own art and you sell it to multiple or to a big audience, it doesn't reach the level of exquisity, and it doesn't become something extraordinary. So those are just two ways of developing your own image.
But I think it still can be unique, because like if it's like something you say it's unique and expensive, you if it's this way you just put like 50 or 100 limited edition.
Yeah, that's the way actually how the Pokras works. But now I'm just like trying to develop something very, very unique. Like for the last things I'm doing, they're something really new, and now I'm looking what can I do with them, because Vyaz, it's a mostly historical thing. It's you can experiment with them with it, but it doesn't get into the level of extraordinary. You just you can create the forest project, and the first project was unique because I got gold leaf, I got forest, and I got Vyaz, and but I'm searching for something that will get really big. So
Well, I think you found something already.
yeah, I'm working on it. But about limited editions, yeah, you're totally right. But when I find the perfect timing for it, I'll release because I have so much material to release. But I'm searching for, I'm trying to do good strategy, because if I do multiple things at once, I can fail at all of them because I can't cope with all the tasks. So I have to do the priority list and to see also to do the A/B testing, what goes good, what doesn't go good, and also for some reason my Instagram, like for the last year, didn't grow so much as I've expected, and like I was, for example, 2 years ago I was uploading not so much, but it got audience. And last year I've decided like I should every second day to upload, and I worked really, really hard, and it didn't grow. It grew like for 5,000, and I was like thinking, what's going on? What's going on? Like, and that's why at December I was a bit depressed because I put so much effort, and the result was not so good. And
Well, what's going on is Instagram is changing all the time, algorithms and stuff. So
yeah.
it's not the problem is not in you, man. It's just you have to all the time to adapt and change the way
Yeah.
you post and interact with your audience. So it's
Yeah,
not.
but it doesn't get into the Instagram game. You know that you have to upload it because you want to fame, but you are doing letters because your own sake, because you love them. So that's the most important thing. But from a business point of view, you have to get your audience bigger and better, because and those numbers actually do a thing when you sell your own paintings and art. So at this point, I'm now like searching for a perfect style, and then I'll find the perfect timing to launch a project. So maybe sometimes it looks like I'm doing nothing, but actually I'm just working and planning how to do it. Like it's a strategy game, and I'm enjoying it. But it's not a computer game when you get fail and you can restart the game. You have to consider mistakes and how to do them.
I see. When considering like teaching Vyaz workshops outside of Russia, do you still teach them in Cyrillic, or you make adaptation to a Latin Vyaz, if I can call it this way?
Yeah, actually, I have some
Because
adaptations
I
of.
think Latin it's much more easy to adapt to Vyaz, you know, versus adapting Gothic to Cyrillic Gothic, you know.
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
Vyaz is much easier to adapt. Or is
Yeah.
it? Because I don't know, like...
Yes, actually, I have some adaptations to Latin, and these last pieces I'm working with the reverse contrast Vyaz is actually Latin.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'm experimenting with it, and so that's when I go outside from Russia to do the workshop classes. I'll have the Latin versions and also Cyrillic versions. So that's actually what takes now time to translate my book, because I have those sketches, but I can't upload them because you have to do a perfect presentation of it. Yeah, you know, the better done than perfect. That
Yeah.
actually works. But I have some high standards that I just did for myself. I'm not too. I don't give my some unreasonable high standards, but I just do. They're pretty high, but they're not so unreasonably, and I can cope with them.
I see.
But it takes effort, and I'm really hardworking, and in Russia it's told like who works that if you work you get the result.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Of course. Do you have some names or people that you follow who are outside of Russia, like Latin calligraphy or calligraphy artists that you enjoy the work of them a lot?
Yeah, Paul Antonio. I really love how, even though he's far from Vyaz, I really love how he
Yeah, it
does
doesn't
his-
matter. Just people who inspire you, you know.
Also, I love Nick Visoli because he's a really cool dude, and I really want to buy his works actually. And if maybe if I come to Italy, I'll totally want to meet him. Yeah, awesome. Whoa.
It's insane, dude. Like
Yeah.
this is
Really.
like this is also his. But
Uh-huh.
and I have another one, but this is my favorite work of his. I saw it when I was in Milano, and he told me like he spent like a week or more to create this piece. I think this is my very very favorite from all my prints that I have of different people. This is like it's such a beauty.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
really good. Yeah.
It's
I would like to have that one.
well,
Totally.
you should check. Like he's selling them online, but I don't know if there's still any left. But man, this is Nick. Nick is amazing. He's a great person. Like to be around,
Yeah.
to have as a friend. He's fun dude, but yeah, his work. Fuck.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm pissed about him, because I want him to have him on the podcast. And he's like, oh, my English. And I'm like, dude, I know your English. Your English is good enough for a fucking podcast, you know?
Yeah, maybe I could try to write him a letter. Like I would like to hear a podcast with him. Maybe that will motivate him.
Dude,
Yeah.
please do this, because
Yeah,
seriously,
totally.
like I try some people to convince them, and I try to tell them that people who are listening, they don't come to listen, oh, your English is perfect or not. They enjoy listening to the story of the people and
Yeah.
what and how they do, you know, so...
Yeah.
And the thing is, with some people, I can understand, like, they're very bad at English, but people like him, they're not that bad. Like, you can understand and it's really annoying, man. Like, because there are some great artists that I want to do, and they're like, oh, my English. I'm like, dude, you write me a perfect letter on Instagram explaining how you can do it, and how do you write this letter if you can't?
Yeah, but people are sometimes shy, and that's okay. Probably when you during the process of creating podcasts, they will consider giving a podcast. Yeah, I'm sure they'll agree to join, but maybe a bit later. Maybe they'll just, or probably you can try to send them a script with some questions, and they can prepare. But during the talk, you can get into a free way, and
Yeah.
because yeah.
I have actually done like for 1-2 people I send them, but we haven't still recorded those episodes, and I was thinking like, But I was like a bit afraid, like if it's so much scripted, like would it feel? I don't know how it will feel, you know. But now that you say like go find some that's yeah that's seems correct to do.
Yeah. Also about the masters from abroad, I love John Stevens. Of course, he's a really good master, like insanely good at calligraphy and lettering, and yeah, he's just. Also, I love work of Barbara Calzari because yeah, she's also far from Vyaz, but I really love the those letters. Like they're something I wish I could do, but I'm not going into that field because yeah, jack of all trades but master of none. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a proverb, and that's for yeah, and also well, looking at the calligraphy masters, the group which you've been uploading for the also, and that's it because in some from some point of view, yeah, I'm really love to give likes, but sometimes I'm really focused on working rather than exploring, and I have some those masters which I look constantly and try to learn from the best. But sometimes, you know, there's an interesting thing when a very young calligrapher gets into the field, and he has an interesting point of view on the letters. And sometimes you can learn from those who are worse than you in a skill, but they have a better view on letters they are very creative, and that's a very interesting thing because sometimes, yeah, you learn from the best, but you also should look upon those who are just starting because they have some unusual way of thinking, and that's the thing I've came across so many times, and usually when you teach someone and then they tell you how they look on the letters and how they write, and yeah, it's a very interesting thing. Like you can learn even from the worst from a point of view of skill because you can't tell that a calligraphy is bad at calligraphy. It's not good to tell that thing, but it's just a skill. And if you write every day, your skill increases, which is very normal thing. But uh, for me, it's very I really love the philosophy of letters. Like a calligraphy master can be really good at skill, but it's important for me how he looks upon his craft, and does he have any philosophy inside of his craftsmanship, and that's also important for me because skill is just a skill, but if you put something, your soul, your philosophy, your way of thinking into the calligraphy and lettering, that's when the magic starts to work, and that's a thing which is very very important for me because you, I hope I see you understand like
Yeah, I
it's
love it, man. I'm just so happy that people like on your age are seeing the things this way and are thinking like this. So it's super cool, you know. Like I wish there are more people like you. Seriously.
yeah.
And do you like when you do art or practice? Like, do you how do you do it? Do you like to be in silence, or you do some music that you like that helps you focus?
Yeah, from time to time, because, for example, if you have as a normal human being, I have different emotions, and sometimes I work in a very in silence, and sometimes I want to play some hardcore metal, and yeah, it depends. Like I have different moods, and but usually when it gets into the Vyaz, I love mostly some Nordic or Slavic ambiental music. I don't know how it works, but it actually helps to get into some interesting. You get interesting experience from it because when I was doing the forest project, I experimented with working in a silence when you just listen to the birds and you just listen to the forest, and you get one experience. But when you try to play those that Slavic type of music in the forest, traditional Russian music, and it gets very strange, like totally unique experience. And but yeah, it depends. Like, but when I have a lot of work to do, I put the headphones and play the hardcore metal because it really motivates me.
Yeah, why not? Fair enough. How much time do you spend on practice? And has this time of practice have it changed throughout the years? Like, did you practice more in the beginning, or do you practice more now, or you don't practice at all now? Like, how is it?
When, for example, now I'm in a phase of doing my own creative projects, and the most important thing for me is that during that phase, I have to create some finished product, and during that, I have multiple experiments, and that can be considered as practice because, for example, those works I've shown you before, those are just experiments and practice, but they've at some point they've started to look as a finished product. So that's a philosophy of working, because just writing letters, it's not enough. You have to create a standalone piece, and and how you reach that point of finished piece, that depends on how much skill you have, and but I know some calligraphers that are doing only practice, like they're writing the same letter all the time, and that's totally okay. The last time I've done it was approximately 1 year ago, and I consider that's not too good because you have to do the basic training all the time. But at this point, my philosophy is to create a finished art, and during that I practice and increase my skills. So there are many ways to improve and to get better, but at this point, for me, it's much more efficient to create something finished. Yeah.
Awesome. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any particular dreams or goals which are connected with what you do, and for the year or for the
Yeah.
next, I don't know, for the future? What's where you headed with what you do?
Yeah, this year I have plans, as I've said earlier, to go to the US, and for some reason I want to go to the Adobe Max conference, and but at this point that's a really hard thing to reach, because if, for example, if I plan to stay at US for about 2 to 3 months, I have to have in the pocket 10 grands, and which is a quite a reasonable sum of money. But it's achievable, but I have to work really hard at it. And so the plan for this year is to reach the Western audience, and that's why I'm working now with the different styles of Vyaz, and trying to represent my works in a bit different way. But plans for 10 years like is to become a really recognizable artist from Russia. But I'm not. I don't want to be connected actually to only to Russia, because we are now living in a big world. It's just a planet. I don't want to be connected to some kind of government but still have a legacy of Cyrillic, and I want to show the world how our letters are beautiful and they're interesting in some way. And so 10 years, recognizable artist. And yeah, plans for this year are very they're non-abstract, because I have planned everything. But in 10 years, to say I have a plan to become a recognizable artist is a more bit abstract plan, and those type of plans don't work. But I have some plans like for in 3 years, what I want to achieve in 3, 5, 10 years. So, but globally told, like, I want to become big and recognizable. Yeah.
No,
And that's the thing that
but that's
people
cool.
dream of.
That's cool, and I'm
Yeah.
like now hearing that you have plans for 3, 5, 10 years. Like,
Hmm.
why and how is that coming? Because of course this is super cool and important to have, but I
Hmm.
know also many people and artists who don't even take time to think about those things.
But those are actually my mistakes because in 2016-17 I was just drifting. I went to St. Petersburg and I wanted to learn, but actually I was without any plans of what I want to do further. And at some point I realized that I actually lost myself during that studies. And drifting and going nowhere is actually the worst thing that can happen in your life. And that's actually a really nightmare because at some point you realize like I've spent so much time. I did experiments, but those things didn't work for me, and learned actually nothing except for making mistakes. Yeah, learning about your mistakes is a very
Well, that's not nothing.
um, yeah, that's the best thing you can do. But drifting is a bad thing, and so that's why. And also, it's interesting that human brain, for me, like 1 year is I can achieve goals, but I can't give myself so really high goals, like because my brain doesn't work in that way. But if you plan in 3 years, you can set some really really good goals, and your brain can't count actually 3 years because it's a really big time. So you have to plan 3, 5, 10 years, which is a better thing than 1 year plans. It's a good to start with, but you have to look further beyond that span of time. So yeah.
Awesome. The question just came up to my mind.
Hmm.
Is there a
Hmm.
special? I mean, of course there is, but like, what
Hmm.
are there better papers for Vyaz, or it's like any other calligraphy alphabet? Doesn't matter so much the paper, or
Doesn't matter. Actually, I've been working lately with handcrafted paper. I have friends, and they lived in Moscow, but they moved to St. Petersburg, and so they create handcrafted paper. And because mm, writing letters on a paper for me is not enough on the usual paper that can be bought in art places, art markets, and that's why I always requesting them, and I pay them money to create handcrafted paper for me. But Vyaz can be done on different paper. Like it doesn't matter. Everything. The only thing that matters is your skill. You can take the worst type of paper and you can create on it something very unique. And because I have this very very old paper, it's a very good opportunity to create something very extraordinary, because you can't get this paper anywhere, because it's very expensive, and also it doesn't you can buy it at the usual places. You have to find someone, and yeah.
okay, but
It's good, like.
how does it feel writing on such paper, man? Like, are you not afraid writing on it to not mess up or something like this?
No, actually, because if you have a good skill, the better the skills, the less the chance you spoil the paper. But yeah, I had some cases when I spoiled artwork, like, and I was really angry with it. But it happens. Yeah, it's just a part of the work, because being perfect means that you are not improving, and yeah.
Yeah, that's true, but I mean, like, come on, like paper that's like from 3 centuries ago, it's still like, I don't know. I mean, it's okay even if I have the most expensive papers that I bought. Okay, I don't care to mess up, but something that's like 3 centuries ago is like, ooh, that's a bit.
Yeah, but if you're too afraid to work on that paper, you will do nothing. So you have to do. There is no way going back. So
That's true, that's true. But it's good. Like, also, I'm sure it's very important for many people to hear this, especially if they're new to calligraphy, because,
hmm
in the beginning you have so wrong thinking about so many things. Like, I remember
hmm
in the very beginning, at one point, I was buying sketchbooks like crazy, and at one point, I had like 10 different sketchbooks which are just sitting brand new, and I'm like, oh, so cool paper, and not even touching it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, that's a very typical problem because when I go to the art market, I see some sketchbooks and I want to buy them. And you buy the sketchbooks all the time, and you get a very big row of the sketchbook and they're empty. And that's a funny thing, actually.
Yeah, that's funny. Like, okay, like now I see some people. Come on, people, let me know if you've done something like this. Depends on where you're listening or watching this. Do you also do this
Yeah.
stuff? Like, it's funny because I never thought somebody else is doing this. Because I was thinking, oh, I'm just some crazy dude like here collecting sketchbooks and keeping them
Yeah.
empty.
But at some point, I've realized that I can those sketchbooks could be a perfect gift. For example, if you at the first I don't know how to call it, spreadsheet, or at the first you can modify that sketchbook and to give it as a gift
Yeah.
to someone. And that's a really good solution because holding back those sketchbooks is at your home for no reason is a bad idea. Actually, but if you give someone a gift, you'll make someone happier, and also you give a piece of your art to someone. And you should consider doing that because yeah, it's a good solution.
Well, I don't have any more this much. I had it like when I was
Uh-huh.
starting, but now most of my sketchbooks are like started or full or stuff like this.
Oh, then yeah, then it's good.
No, I was speaking like in the beginning, and also
hmm
there was like a huge reason for this was like it's up to date. It's a big reason. Like I don't
hmm
have so much often the time to write because most of the time I have to handle the Instagram of
Yeah.
Calligraphy Masters or the
Oof.
YouTube doing podcasts and. But
How much do you sleep actually? Because I see that you're working all the time. You're like doing podcasts, you're uploading videos, you manage to do the Instagram page, and yeah, well, that's so much work. You're crazy, like.
well, sometimes I don't much, but I don't
hmm
know. Like I do all this stuff because I fail a lot, man. Like right now I'm focused on podcasts because like in January, YouTube demonetized my YouTube channel, which means I'm not making any money at the moment from it, and
hmm
I have to push stuff, like I'm not writing, but it's still like something that's I'm learning how
hmm
to manage it to go good way. So I experiment like,
hmm
and it's I'm really
hmm
having actually fun with this podcast because I think it's probably well, it's the only one I know that's about calligraphy,
hmm
lettering, and sign painting, and it's
hmm
always like for 5 years I've been always in many things being the first. At one point, so many pages started copying me on Instagram, and this year I stopped reposting stuff because so many pages copy what I share. And of course, it's cool to inspire people, but like to have 10, 15 different pages having the same content, I don't think it's cool.
hmm Yeah,
And
that's.
I try to push myself, and right now with the podcast, I really enjoy it. Like it's really cool. I have to meet
hmm
people like you and talk with them, and I also like that the guests are
hmm
satisfied with the feedback. Also, the feedback from the listeners is great. So
hmm
I'm just
hmm
waiting for the moment when people start copying me and start doing podcasts. But it's okay. I don't know. Sometimes I don't, in a long time, I don't get much sleep, but sometimes I have these periods when something gets, I don't know, like you're like failure becomes and you're like lost and confused. In those kinds of
hmm
days or weeks, I get some sleep. But there has been
Oof.
many times that not much sleep.
Yeah.
Depends on how much you're motivated and how much you feel good about what you do.
And how much coffee do you drink? Yeah.
Well, like I've been a bartender for 11 years and I try to not use coffee as much because I've used it a lot in the beginning. I think the best is water and fresh juices, but sometimes I push myself, like, depends on how much you're tired. Sometimes you have to drink some energy drinks and stuff like this. But
Oh.
usually I think the best is natural water, juice, and something like this. And I mean, if you enjoy what you do, you don't feel this tiredness and sleepiness, you know, because you're just pushed from inside to keep working and do stuff. And especially when you see
Yeah.
that people get it well, like they enjoy the results, it's even more like, okay, let's do more.
Yeah, the most important thing is not just to not to give up. Like it's yeah, you we've talked about it. You get depressed. You lose the motivation. You lose the fire inside. But yeah, nah, you stand up again and yeah, work. And because about those Instagram clones, like the easiest thing is to clone an Instagram page, but doing videos and podcasts, you have to put a much more effort. So I think that there will be
No, but you know
no.
what's the annoying thing? Like, of course I repost stuff, but many people they don't realize that I spent hours and hours of looking accounts and things that okay, I find this is cool, that will be inspiring for people, and it will, of course, the best thing is to get more reach and attention. But those pages, they see already what's going well, and this is the annoying thing because many times I've tried. Okay, I've been reposting new stuff, but sometimes I'm like, go into a profile, I go very deep, like very old pieces. I repost, and there is no chance that all of the sudden everybody will decide to share
Yeah.
this person this old post, you know. And
Yeah.
this is when you realize that they are copying me and what I do. So
Yeah, that's for sure. But the best thing about Calligraphy Masters is that you have a person we know who stands behind the Calligraphy Masters. All other Instagram pages, I don't know who is the administrator, how much he knows, does he love letters, or like I don't know anything about it. And about Calligraphy Masters, that's really good because you're also a calligrapher and you love your work and you just appreciate other calligraphy masters, and that's the best thing about it. So clones probably they'll copy and they usually die. They have a spawn of life, like for
well, I don't mind people being inspired. Of course, it's like the best thing for me is calligraphy to grow as much as possible, to help as many artists to grow. But just there should be a better way to do it, you know. Like, and I don't know, like that because I have this influence. That's why I made these changes. I stopped reposting it. It's super hard, like seeing like oh, my usual reach that I'm used to go down, and it's not easy. I mean, it's fucked up for me. Like, it was a big reason for my depression in the beginning of the year. Like I didn't know what to do because I'm used to some numbers. I'm used to every day do repost, and at one point all this stopped, and I was lost, dude. But
yeah. Yeah. But have you considered creating a Patreon or some pages when you can get some money from like? Have you considered doing something like that?
well, no, but like I was relying on YouTube, and now in few days I'll be able again to apply. Then I'm working
Uh,
on some merch, and then a website is being expected. I mean, the website should be ready in January, but the person who is like, there is some stuff, a lot of stuff have planned, but I know sometimes you have to wait for the moment, you know.
yeah, perfect timing.
Yeah, I'm doing my best, which I can at the moment, and just hope for the best, you know, like
Yeah.
do what I can with what
Um,
I have at the moment, pretty much.
yeah. The only thing that remains is just to work.
Yeah,
Only
exactly.
thing.
Well, do you have is there some how to say advice or tip that you ever received that helped you the most on your journey? Somebody gave you
Um,
advice or a tip that it was crucial for you or that changed your mind, something like this.
So I have received one tip, and which gave me the best results. I can call it like that. Piotr Petrovich Chobitko, my first master of calligraphy, he has a very he tells to his students that you can't spend a day without writing a letter. So that's a really good actual thing, because if you don't write a letter for one day, your skills decrease and you get worse at it. So that's the most important thing as far as I remember. And the second thing that actually is very important for me is when I realized at the 2016-17 when I for a moment thought like I've lost myself, that you mm, you can't be jack of all trades. Like, you can be profound in every style. It's impossible actually. Well, it may be possible if you are in calligraphy for 50 years or so, which actually John Stevens do. But at some point you have to realize what you actually love, and what style suits you the best. And that point I've returned to Vyaz, and that's when I started working again. So you have to concentrate. You have to have a focus field, because if you don't have a focus field, you will again drift and you probably lose yourself. And because it's not so important to develop your own style. It's very unreasonable and stupid to set a goal to develop your own style. Actually, while you practice, while you experiment, that's when you develop your own style. And because when you write letters, you'll develop your own style automatically. So taking a goal like I want to develop my own style is not so good actually, because it's abstract thing. Like, what is a style? How can you describe your own style without knowing what style do you have? So that's mostly philosophical thing, but only practice, studying, looking upon the masters will get you to the point when you realize what you love the best, what you love, and what you want to create. So, and that's from my experience, because at some point I was like, I love this, I love that, I want to do everything from calligraphy, and then I lost myself, and that's a mistake, and I've realized that it was a mistake, and that's good, but that's not a good experience, because it's obvious. You have to be expert in one field, and you can be semi-expert, or you have to, in other fields, but you have to focus on one field mostly, because if you don't do that, you'll be just a standard. You'll not be so recognizable, and you'll be master of none, which is not so good. So that's probably my advice.
Like, uh, how much time every day do you spend on like improving yourself, like doing not improving yourself, but I mean the things you do, like artwork and practice, and like, are you doing anything else apart calligraphy and lettering? Like, I mean, you must be doing. And my point is like, what do you do when you're not doing calligraphy or lettering, and how do you enjoy spending that time?
Yeah, that's a funny thing, because some of my friends say that I have no life, like I'm doing only letters, and that was actually a true thing about me 2 years ago. But that at some point I've started experimenting, like going into the forest and try to listen to podcasts, going out into cafe, and I've actually started to work a lot in a cafe. So I have a place. It's some kind of co-working space, but it's more friendly. And you go there and you just draw letters, you create, and you can communicate. You can be surrounded by friends, and that's a good place to work in. But sometimes when I need to work really hard, when I have to concentrate, I stay at my home and work for approximately, for example, yesterday I worked 8 hours, and sometimes I work more, and but sometimes I feel like I'm exhausted and I sleep, and but usually when I get motivated, I just work all the time, and even, for example, I have to reach that co-working space, and in public transport I open my iPad and I draw, and I do that everywhere, anytime, and but I do that because I just love my work.
Awesome, that's the best.
Yeah, but sometimes it gets a bit scary, because if you draw too much, and when you have your hand too much, your hand gets exhausted and starts to hurt, and that's a not so good thing, because you reach the limit, because your body has a limit, your brain has a limit, and when you just pull yourself too much, and you can get into the field when you get exhausted, and when you get exhausted you lose the motivation, and that's a very you have to be really how to say, really careful with that, because if you pull yourself too much, if you push yourself too much, you can just get into a bad state, and in a bad mood, and because you have to remember that letters are not everything. Like, I really love my job. I can draw for 12 hours a day, but you have a life, actually. And it will be a shame to spend your own life only drawing letters. So that's also a mistake I realized a year ago, because I was last year I isolated myself for a month or two, and I just was drawing, and I didn't communicate with anyone, because I was like, I want to work, and I don't want to be I want to be concentrated all the time. And during that isolation, I realized that's a very stupid thing to do, because you were born on this planet to enjoy life. Like, you can create letters, and you're enjoying your life, but you have to share your happiness with someone. You have to be surrounded by friends, and yeah, but being an expert doesn't mean you have to ruin your personal life
Well, that's what
for
I
the
do.
sake of. Yeah, but it's a good thing. But if you reach some certain degree, you'll notice that it was not a smart move. But you have to reach that some degree, because probably you're now in a mood when you feel you have to work, and that's the thing that really fills you, and you're feeling like you're doing a right thing. But at some point, if you start to feel like you're not living your life the proper way, that's the perfect moment. You have to stop and to realize what you've been doing, because if you don't do that, and you continue to push yourself, you'll get burnt, and you just be exhausted, and you have to be careful. But if you, at this point, you feel like you are really willing to work, you have to work. So that's
Well, even when you don't feel you can work or you have to work, you still work, man. Like, I don't know, depends on your
yeah,
goals, because especially with CM and the numbers I have
yeah,
and the goals I have, it's not a matter of choice. Oh, like, today I feel like this and tomorrow like this, and it's just
yeah, I understand.
work, work, work.
Yeah,
And no friends, nobody. Like, sometimes it's annoying. Like, yeah, you need to see people and stuff, but most of the time it's fuck it. Like, I know what I want to achieve with this thing, and I know it's based on lots of sacrifice. So
Yeah. Yeah, you have to do the sacrifices. But as far as you telling about sacrificing your friends, you at that point when you get into a bad mood, you have to just remember how the number of people you motivated and you inspired to get into the calligraphy, and that's a really amazing thing. I can't even imagine being you at this point, because you've done so much to calligraphy, to modern calligraphy. So people, that it it's not a secret that so many people are grateful, because you've shown how calligraphy is a unique art to a modern viewer. So
I know what you mean, and sometimes this is what I'm discussing with my girlfriend, because like sometimes it's not all the time, but sometimes there are people who write crazy messages or send emails which are like, it makes me smile, but and it's cool for a moment, but I just forget it because I have so many like dreams and goals that I want to achieve and reach, and for a moment it's super cool and like, yeah, that's nice, and yeah, I've actually done this, but it's very fast. It disappears, and you just fall into again to the stress and work on this, on how to make this, how to this and this and this, and it's but yeah, I guess it's
yeah, but that's the realities of being an adult, to take responsibility and all the tasks of everyday hard life. But yeah, but still, I prefer being happy working on things I love than working on the things that I don't love.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, we're really lucky and happy to do that.
yeah, that's for sure, man. And I actually really enjoy talking with you, man. Like it's like it's the first time we meet, as many of the people on the podcast, and it's really cool. I enjoy talking with you. So like, if you want to say something, wish something to people that are listening now, or people who are wondering if this is for them, if they should start, if you have something to plug in to promote something of yourself upcoming, or some friends, whatever it is, go on.
I have nothing to promote for exceptions of that I'm now working on an English version of my Vyaz book. So when it will be released, I'll just contact you, and probably you'll want to share it
Sure,
to
sure.
everyone on TM. I've told the advices, but I'll repeat them. Just work hard.
Keep writing. Keep writing.
Keep writing. Yeah.
Okay, buddy.
So
Like, sorry. What?
it was. I just want to say it was also a really big pleasure to talk with you. Like it's the first time we met, but it's from this impression like I've met an old friend.
Awesome, man. I feel the same way, and I'm glad that you feel this way. And let's set it up from now. Next time you feel like you have something to share, or then you'll be guest again in the podcast, man. I would love to
Yeah,
talk again
okay.
with you, and I would love to meet you in person one day. So,
Yeah, totally.
So it would be really cool.
So okay, thank you. So and see you. See you or hear you.
Thanks a lot for your time, buddy, and thanks for being a guest in the podcast. It was amazing, and keep writing.
Yeah, keep writing. Yeah, see you.
So that's it for today, guys. Thank you for listening to another episode of Calligraphy Masters Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to the story of Viktor Pushkarev and it helped or inspired you in some way. Next Sunday, I was supposed to be speaking with a very special guest who was surprised for you all, but the episode is not finished yet, so we will have to wait a little bit more. That's why next Sunday, instead of one, I will be releasing 2 episodes. And please follow Calligraphy Masters on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep writing.